Ah,
Hello. Hi. My name is Patrick McCray, and I am joined by the other of those Collinsport boys.
Mr. Alan Gallant.
And we're going to be talking about the Twilight Zone and issues of age and youth. And we have six, actually seven episodes
Yes.
to cover, and we will do it briskly and with effervescence and so on and so
Well,
forth. But
maybe.
what,
Maybe.
Alan? What are we talking about tonight?
Okay, so we've got 6 episodes from the original series, and one that is basically it's a continuation of one of those episodes from the cable series that came on in the early 2000s, and that particular one is um, the original episode from season 3, episode 8 is "It's a Good Life," starring Bill Mumy and also Cloris Leachman are the two main characters that our audience would know. That episode was written by Rod Serling and Jerome Bixby, or was directed by Jerome Bixby, I'm sorry, who directed episodes of the original Star Trek and also Fantastic Voyage, the
I
movie.
think I think Bixby was a writer.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even write. I didn't even write the director down for that one. My apologies.
Now,
But
was he involved with the Long Live Walter Jameson?
let me take a look here. No, that was Beaumont.
Okay.
I think it was
Okay.
Beaumont. They may have been co-writers,
Okay.
but I think he was the main writer for that. As Beaumont also wrote Long Distance Call, which is another
Yes, he
one.
did. God, that's so
Which
good.
is like the producers were really worried about Bill Mumy having suicidal ideations because of this particular subject matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, fine. And he was.
Yeah.
Amazing child actor.
Really,
Amazing.
really good. He nails everything.
Yeah.
Total focus. I mean, total
Yeah.
focus. Zen like.
Yep. The continuation of It's a Good Life, which is one of the more horrific episodes, it really gets under your skin, especially the repetition of the positive thinking, positive thinking.
Oh,
It just gets under your skin. It's the early 2000s version or continuation is called "It's Still a Good Life," in which Bill Mumy is still basically what's happened when he was a child is he's terrorizing this town because he has the power to make people disappear and torture them and his psychic powers. And they have to be nice to him, otherwise he'll make them disappear into the cornfield.
yeah.
So
Where we get that?
as an adult, he's still doing this stuff, and his aged mother, Cloris Leachman, is still there.
That's just great. It's wonderful continuity.
Yes, yeah. And then Bill Mumy's real life daughter, Liliana, is also in it, and she's pretty good. She's not as fine a child actor as her father was, but she's all right. She does okay.
That's a very high mark to set.
Yes, it is. It is totally. And again, the continuation was directed by Alan Croker, who directed or Star Trek, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise. All of the most of the significant new ones.
So Alan would have done some scripts
Mm-hmm.
that were written by the guy who wrote "It's Still a Good Life," Ira Stephen Bear, who was the showrunner on DS9.
Right. Yes, indeed. And other than those two, which are the ones that are truly linked because of Bill Mumy and because of the subject matter and because of Cloris Leachman as well, which, as you mentioned before, is great continuity. We start season 1, episode 24, Long Live Walter Jameson, which is Kevin McCarthy, and Estelle Winwood makes a rather chilling appearance.
Yes, she does.
And this is, in terms of aging and youth, this is about somebody who's suspended aging and maintained sort of a middle-aged youthfulness.
See, this is why I think Bixby might have been involved.
Yeah.
Because it's basically Man from Earth.
Mm.
You remember Man from Earth? It's Man from Earth. It's the same story.
Yeah,
He's even in academia.
Yes, he is. He is an academic. for those in the audience who may not have seen it, Kevin McCarthy, who you might have known from the Invasion of the Body Snatchers and a million and a half guest starring roles in the 1960s and 70s, including this one. Kevin McCarthy plays a guy who is over 2,000 years old. And he's asked for and he's an academic. He works in a college setting as a history professor. And this, his mentor, I guess he's hit, one of the guys he's known there for 10 years, the guy that helped get him hired there, is a bit suspicious of his intimacy with history, the way his passion for it and the way that he talks about it. And so he starts doing a little research and he finds a picture of Walter Jameson in a Civil War era book. And
Matthew Brady photo.
Yeah, Matthew Brady photo. And he starts asking questions about it, and eventually he confesses to it. And talks about the fact that he wants to kill himself, but he can't. He doesn't have the courage to do it. And so what gets thrown into this hot mix is that he's got this young woman who is the daughter of this mentor, who he wants to marry. And of course, as soon as he finds out about this, the mentor goes, no, you can't do this. This is unfair. You're going to disappear in 10 years.
An immortal man is fine. An immortal man is fine, but would you want your daughter to marry one?
Right. Exactly. You're kind of on a wild side and a weird side, I guess. For some people that might work, I guess. But anyway, then his former wife, who's about 85 years old, shows up, skulking around the neighborhood, as played by Estelle Winwood, and she confronts him. And he basically, no, and all this sort of thing, and she shoots him.
Yeah, she goes all Dirty Harry on him. It's great.
Totally Dirty Harry on him. And then she walks away. Not a problem. Well, the old man next door hears, the mentor hears the shots going off. It's like, he meets her in the street and he says, "What happened?" And she just stares at him and basically says, "F off." And
yeah, you're next.
Walks away. And so he goes into Jameson's rooms and discovers he's beginning to age. He's been shot, of course, but he's beginning to age as he dies. And eventually he ages and turns to dust because he's 2,000 years old.
And the daughter comes in and they snort him.
The daughter comes in and the daughter is actually Frank Zappa's mother. So yes, they just do dust blow for the rest of the night. No, they just kind of walk away, and we get the epilogue, from the Twilight Zone. But it's an interesting thing about immortality and what a shackle it could be, and probably would be, if you were to live forever and or be relatively immortal and live for thousands of years. After a while, life would become this perverse thing, and then it would go beyond that and become this boring thing,
Yeah, that was a thing that it really has on Man from Earth, because it's very Man from Earth in a lot of ways. But I think Jameson is much more realistic. I buy Jameson more.
It's sort of domestic in a way that makes you think. Yeah,
he has a great line about what you thought living forever is going to make you wiser. No, you just don't die.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Yeah. He's very. There's wisdom in that, but he's just basically saying you progress so far and that's it. That's it. Nothing more happens to you except you just go on.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about these early episodes, 59 and 60 in particular, of course, 59 and 60 have different openings than the classic animated opening that we're all used to seeing with the spiral and all that happen towards the latter seasons. But one thing that's really interesting in it is it's really there's a weird emotional connection that's really magnified in some of these earlier episodes. It's sort of melodramatic, but only in the classic respected genre sense of melodrama. just heightened intensity and emotional sort of stuff going on. And maybe it's because I'm getting older. I started to feel some of these episodes start to affect me much more emotionally than perhaps when I saw them when I was 15 or something. Because
Yes. So
there's a
what's
lot.
the other one in this pair that you're putting together?
What's that?
Well, okay, so you're talking about the early episodes have that.
Yes.
Was there another early episode that we're looking at tonight that has that?
Well, it's Long Distance Call has it with a grandmother who doesn't want to let go. Which is the
Wow.
next episode. Walter Jameson's from late '59, and Long Distance Call is from '60, which is the year I was born. So
I had forgotten how scary that was.
it really is, and one of the things that makes it so scary is the sincerity.
The sincerity. I was about to say that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's Lily Darvis, who is the wife of the Hungarian playwright Ferenc Molnar, who wrote The Guardsman.
Yeah.
She's the grandmother in this, I think, isn't he? No. I'm sorry. Yes, she's the grandmother. Bill Mumy again. This is the second of the original era episodes that Bill Mumy is in, and he's also in the sequel to It's a Good Life. This has a great last scene with when the father picks up the telephone. It's absolutely fantastic. For those of you who have never seen this episode, Long Distance Call, it's another one written by Charles Beaumont, and Bill Mumy, again, he's about 4 or 5 years old in this. He's 5, I guess, in 1960. That makes sense because I think, he's just 70 years old now. He's just like an open thing, just takes in everything that's around him. And the relationship between he and this Lily Darvis's character, which is his grandmother, is very intimate. It's very immediately. She gives him this gift. It's Christmas time, of course, and she gives him this gift, and it is a plastic pretend telephone. And she tells him, "You can call me anytime, and I will answer." And so, what happens, to make a long story short, is that she's old and she's ill, and she passes away within the first half of the episode.
And Mumy's on that phone.
And Billy's on that phone, and she is calling him to join her in the afterlife.
What's the line? Because Mumy has that one line that just freezes everything, where he says, and she wants me to go with her, or something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact line right off the top of my head right now. I probably should have written it down because it's very impactful. It's like the father's realization, and the mother and father in this are great too.
They are. And
they're not big names, but they're really, really good.
It's strong performances, but it's strong characters also.
Mm-hmm.
The grandmother is so passive aggressive to her son. I mean, just over and over again.
Yeah.
I don't know who you are, but I know this one. He's my new son.
Mm-hmm.
At the deathbed.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's a little otherworldly, bizarre, a little alien in some ways, but it serves its purpose because, again, the obsession is passed to the kid, and the kid is on the phone with her constantly, to the point where he's like figuring out ways to join grandma, and he steps out into the street at one point.
Drowns himself.
What's that?
He drowns himself.
He drowns himself towards the end of the episode, and it looks like he's not going to make it because he didn't get pulled out in time. And that's when the father goes upstairs, finds the plastic phone, gets on the phone, and begs his mother to leave the kid alone, to let him live. And sure enough, the kid comes out of it.
Yeah.
It's a great scene. It's fantastic. It goes from hysteria to relief and everything in between. It's just, I
was really moved by all of these, but this episode hit me very hard.
Hmm. Yeah.
Especially somebody with a lot of bereavement
Hmm.
baggage.
Hmm.
It was, this kid gets his ultimate wish fulfillment that you don't want.
Right.
But
Exactly. Because somebody can't let go,
yeah,
and that's toxic ultimately.
but he's too
Being
young to know it.
right, exactly. See, he's just a pawn in the game, really, or in the game of desire of his grandmother and his parents. They're trying to influence him the other way, and all of this sort of thing is going on. But it's a really it's another thing where age and youth meet, um, for another discussion on, uh, not immortality but mortality in this case,
Yeah,
and how to deal with that.
yeah.
Obviously, the Granny doesn't want to let go, even if she's gone into the afterlife. She does not want to let go of life, and through the kid, and the kid doesn't want to let go of grandma, even though she's dead. Uh, which the father finally says, "Hey, she's dead. She's
Oh,
not going. She didn't go away. She's dead."
yeah.
And this is part of the process of coming back from the abyss.
Sure. And the kid is perfectly capable because he hasn't been socialized yet of
Hmm.
sort of understanding these nuances between these different states
Yes.
that the parents don't get. Now, there's a vaguely unrelated observation I'm going to throw out. I was going to put it at the end, but I think it's maybe is better now because it's a good talking point for the episodes to come. And it's this. One of the things I talk about in classes is how the silent generation were really the world's first teenagers or
Hmm.
America's first the teenager didn't really exist.
Right.
You stayed in school until you were literate enough and could do math enough to help run the family business, and at that
Right.
point you quit school and you went and helped run the family business.
Right.
And so this idea of this luxury time to be a teenager and suddenly have all these other concerns, um, that's a new one.
Yeah.
And the funny thing in these is that Serling had not yet developed the cultural reflexes to respond to that. And it was all still happening, it was all
Yeah.
still being created. But none of these episodes deal with that other weird point in a person's age, which is being a teenager.
Right.
And with a lot of these, I wondered what would happen if you skewed it a little bit, and instead of little kids, it was a teenage element. You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
what does that mean for
Serling
that electric
himself was
grandmother?
was a World War II guy. I mean,
Yeah,
he didn't have that luxury. All that happened post-war, as you were saying. It's
yeah.
just the teenagers didn't have the luxury of time. They also didn't have money, and they ended up having money after the war. They either got money from their parents, who were more affluent by that time, or they were going out and getting jobs, jerking sodas or whatever.
Yeah,
And
serving other teenagers. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's just a different way to socialize with them.
yeah,
And this is an episode. Well, I don't think the teen thing has a lot to do here, but wow, electric grandmother.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff implied in that thank God doesn't come to fruition.
right,
Specifically what happens when this guy becomes a teenager and he has
right,
different needs. um what uh uh what was Anthony's, It's a Good Life,
right.
what were his teenage years like?
No, forget
Oh
about it.
my God,
Half the town
imagine
got
being trapped in
fat.
that. Yeah, imagine being trapped in that town during puberty.
Hmm. Yeah, insane. Well, we get a hint of what it must have been like with It's Still a Good Life. He's an adult by that time. He's in his 30s or whatever, but some stuff has gone down.
Oh yeah.
Mama is completely frazzled by this point, and everybody
you
else in
know
town is just a mess.
a really good way to have communicated that without hitting it over the head is if Cloris Leachman's the only female cast member.
Mm.
He's got pissed off at all the rest at one point or another. And
Yeah,
woof.
yeah, yeah. The next one after Long Distance Call in terms of chronological order is It's a Good Life. Do you want to leave that to air? Let's do it now, and then we'll do It's Still a Good Life either after this or wait till the end.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do.
That's fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we're going to season 3 now, episode 8. And this is 1962 at this point. And this is It's a Good Life with Bill Mumy, who's probably, I don't know, 6, 7 years old, something like that. And Cloris Leachman, who is, in her 30s, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, she would have to be.
Yeah. And this, again, was Serling Bixby. And this is probably one of the more psychological horror stories of the series.
It's all implication. It's all just getting wheels to run in the audience's mind about what would happen. What would happen if I were in that position?
There's also
everyone kind of having the kamikaze fantasy of being the one with the rock to knock his head in.
Right. And having to avoid having that fantasy within a country mile of the kid, The interesting thing to me here is how they build the psychosis of the town with repetition. Everything's going to be good. Everything's good. Everything's good. He's what a good boy. Oh, that was a good thing to do. Oh, yeah, that was a really good thing to. But meanwhile, the actor's job is to be absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
And to be able to somehow show that to the audience without letting the kid in on the joke, or not on the joke, but on what the reality is. Until
it's a sophisticated trick to pull off.
Yeah, well, I mean, nervous breakdowns happen, and that's when the kid sends people to the cornfield. Nervous breakdowns are happening, and they're just saying, "F you, kid, I can't take this anymore." It's basically it's a study in tyranny. It's a study on the terror state.
Well, yeah, there's a good video floating around YouTube that talks about it as a jacket's coming off. It talks about it as a parable about dictatorships.
Metaphor.
And there were a lot back then.
Yeah. Yes.
And what does that do to towns? And what does that do to the dictator who has absolute power? I'm also interested in sort of Anthony's evolution. When did he start to realize that he had these abilities?
Right.
And how did they manifest themselves?
Well, he must have had a temper tantrum at some point, and somebody went to the cornfield.
And he liked it.
Because that meant, as with anybody, any kid is just a ball of id when they're like 2 years old. Give me, mine, me, and that's when they're having to be tutelaged out of that to control that. Yeah, but he would never be tutelaged completely out of that because he wouldn't allow it.
Yeah,
it would be lethal to try, or potentially lethal to try.
And it's a commentary on something else too. That it just occurred to me. It's commentary on the fact that being a kid is not fun.
No, it's not. Being a parent isn't fun either. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not. But we talk a lot about the parent side of these things. And the kids just sort of being pushed around as pawns, being expected to basically be creatures who can be put on pause. Yeah.
Yeah. To be quiet, and when they have something to say, and sure.
So what if they didn't have to put up with that?
Yeah, exactly. No stymie. Ha ha! Here we go.
No. Yeah.
But yes, this episode, about halfway through the first time I saw it, I thought to myself, this kid is a dictator with a power of life and death, which, of course, any tin pot dictator has in his own little country. Sometimes the countries aren't so little either, obviously. But this was a great source of how people are psychologically under siege in a situation like this, and how sometimes it snaps and other times you just go on through the hell for year after year after year.
Yeah. So and then they did a sequel.
And then they did a sequel. In the early 2000s, It's Still a Good Life, and they brought back Cloris and Bill and Bill's daughter Liliana, as we mentioned before, and the great Alan Croker, writer of Star Trek DS9.
Yeah, Alan Ira Stephen Bear.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Croker was the director.
Director, sorry.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting thing. For one thing, it goes from black and white to color, which makes a difference. It's also from film stock to videotape. That makes a difference in the way everything is. It's mostly, instead of being at night, which a lot of the original is at night. This one is mostly in the daytime, although there are a couple of night scenes in it. The bowling alley and so on. But this is a continuation of somebody who was not able to develop in a normal sort of way. Now, he had a wife, and he ends up having this kid, this little redheaded girl, which is his own real life daughter. And but she apparently doesn't have the power at the beginning of the episode. We don't know anything about her other than she's probably a normal child. And Cloris Leachman's still going around going, hey, no, don't, and that sort of thing. And he is still a petulant child in a lot of ways. You upset him, and he regresses right back into a 5-6-year-old. And in this case, of course, this episode is a great exercise in irony too. What ends up happening is that it's discovered that the girl can make things disappear.
Yeah,
like her dad.
She can make things reappear.
She can make them reappear
out of the cornfield. Yeah,
right. So she, in theory, has more power than her own father, and as it turns out, she does. And it looks like she's going to help people against her own father, but she can't do it. She then turns on the rest of the community and disappears an entire room full of them.
I have a theory about that. I think it's a deliberate strategy on her part.
Maybe.
I don't think she's wishing them into the cornfield. I think she's just wishing them to some other pocket dimension where they'll be safe from Anthony, so that she can take care of Anthony personally.
Maybe, because she wants to take him. Well, she wants to take him out of town, which, of course, if anybody's left, is to their great benefit if they're gone.
Yeah.
So there's that. But she also makes it pretty clear, at least to him, that she's ready to defend him, and that if anybody messes with them, she'll make them disappear. So
I think she's buying time.
There's a, but you're not quite sure. But
you're not sure. That's just my theory.
That's a definite possibility, sure. And I think eventually he's going to suffer whether or not she's doing that or not. He's going to suffer the consequences of having a daughter who has more power than he does, and she may send him to the damn cornfield, or wherever. But yeah, the one thing about her that's redemptive is that she can bring him back. So she's not, but it's still a little diabolical at the end.
It's very diabolical.
Sinister.
She's an angry-looking kid.
Yeah,
she can really turn it on.
Yeah. She grew up to be a beautiful young woman, by the way. She's still she's still
good.
Yeah,
good. So which ones? What do we got next? Kick the Can.
Okay. Yes, it's Kick the Can, season 3. Again, 62, episode 21. This is awesome.
It's really good.
It's so awesome.
And it's sad. He still lets you have this lingering kind of.
Oh yeah, he quotes Gibran at the end of it, and all of this stuff. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's very sophisticated.
Yes. What is it? Theodore Marcus Faraday. and George Clayton Johnson. And I'm trying to think of who was the director and who was the writer. And I think it's Johnson was the director.
No,
Also,
Johnson
no
was the writer.
writer. Logan's Run and Ocean's 11, the 2001 version.
And for Twilight Zone, he also wrote Once Upon a Dime.
Okay. Then Faraday's the director. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. But it's a fantastic episode. It's absolutely fantastic. And it is at once uplifting and also immutably sad at the end for certain characters. It's immutably sad, especially for the one guy who was his best friend his whole life, who gets left out because he didn't believe.
Yeah. He didn't believe in the magic.
And the guy that I'm trying to think that I didn't write his name down. Damn it! The guy that plays the superintendent at the old folks is also in The Godfather. He plays the film producer that gets the horse head in his bed.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Waltz.
Yes,
I think
that was the only real familiar face that I saw in the entire episode. Everybody else were elderly actors that I think one or two of them I've seen in sitcoms and so on in the 70s. That but because some of them were made to be older than they were. It's an episode about longing and finding the magic in your head that allows you to be youthful. If not, I mean, obviously they become literally kids again. This group of these elderly people by playing kick the can. And this one guy is just obsessed with the idea. Once he gloms onto it, hey, maybe what we have to do is play our childhood games. Maybe this is what we have to do in the best way we can and just see what happens. Maybe we can recapture our youth. And they literally do because it's the Twilight Zone. But it's also an object lesson for, people that are getting older, not to get older in the head, in terms of not allowing yourself to become stuck, basically. And several of the characters talk about that, and they make arguments for and against it throughout the entire episode. You need to shut up and be, sit in your chair, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you're right. The moment in this episode, and a lot of emotional moments, but sort of philosophically, the moment that really gets to me in this is where he's talking about, the protagonist is talking about when how we get old, and we get old by stopping playing.
Right.
And that is a really interesting concept. I was acutely aware of how my mind and my brain was changing and I couldn't play anymore.
Yeah.
There was a time when, I could set up dioramas with, dolls and all of that. And I would have all sorts of scenarios and things like that. And that lasted, I think, longer than average with me. And I prized it. Yeah. I never saw it as a weakness. It was this, it was this sort of superpower.
No, when I was in my early teens, I got berated by my brothers for playing with action figures. I still had 12-inch action figures, and I used to do the same thing: create scenarios, write them down, do all this sort of stuff, and I used them as imagination tools. And I still have some of them because I'm a collector of all this crap now. I still have a couple of them, including.
But there's that point though. Yeah, there we go. I have him.
Yeah,
that's Geronimo from Mars.
Geronimo. I also have Captain Maddox, who in the face is actually an aborted version of Jim West from Wild Wild West.
Okay, that makes sense. That does look like Robert Conrad.
Yep.
So I'll tell you, I was very aware of losing that ability, and not being sure why I was losing it, or how I was losing it. But I really, it's when suddenly those action figures and things spend more times on the shelf.
Sure, and they do. And one of the reasons why is because environmentally we're being pushed in another direction in terms of what our brains are being occupied with. And it makes it very difficult. But I think as a writer too, you still maintain some of that childish or childlike creativity, I should say, because you have to. Otherwise,
Bradbury.
Can't write.
Yeah. Well, Bradbury, who wrote the last in this cycle that we're
Hmm.
looking at, Ray Bradbury has a nice essay where he was talking about that for presents, by God, he wants toys.
Yes.
And even at his age, the value of toys, and you can't take better creative advice and
No.
life advice than from Ray.
No. Absolutely not. Yeah. I totally agree with Ray too. I'll have toys when I'm. If I live to be 100, I'll
Yeah,
have something around that I can meddle with
a
to keep
ball.
to make my brain go. If it's still going, if I haven't lost all my marbles by then.
Yeah,
So,
well, you're holding on.
so far it's slipping. But yeah. So, Kick the Can is a great study in all of that, or youth versus age, and how to maintain vitality. I guess
It
even
is.
if
It
you're an
is
old
so.
person.
It is so truthful that it's almost overwhelming. I almost have sensory overload
Hmm.
when I watch it. I really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. And again, I think too, at our age, at our time in life, it becomes more in focus
Mhm.
than it was when we were first watching this stuff, when we were, 20 or 15 or however old we were when we first saw these things. So
So we're on the final stretch.
we are.
We got the trade-ins and Electric Grandmother. I
Yeah.
think about Electric. Yeah.
Yes, we do. Hold on a second here. Let me make sure of that. 'Cause I don't think I wrote down much about the trade-ins. I don't know why. It was weird. Anyway, this is a great episode as well. It's a fantastic episode.
Very
It,
Henry-esque.
yes, and again, it doesn't star anybody that our audience would probably know. They're character actors. They're all character actors. They're all really good. Um, uh, they're aged a bit more than their actual age, or sometimes a couple of decades more. Um, but the whole premise of trade in is the ability to basically trade in your old body for a new one for $5,000.
But you can't leave your buddy behind. And
Right.
that's the thing. And the loyalty is more important.
Yes. This couple goes into this firm that does this work, and they decide to do this for themselves because they're in their 70s or whatever. The 60s version of 70s is our 80s, but and they find out it's too expensive. It's a great idea.
My
They're
twice.
right. They're into it, but it's going to cost $10,000, and they've only saved up like half that much.
They
And
can do
so,
one.
yeah, the first thing the old man does is he goes off and tries to gamble for the rest of the money. And
He runs into the nicest
he
gamblers he
runs into the
possibly could.
nicest degenerate gambler in the world. This
But
guy,
I'm
by the way,
glad.
I forget his name is Theo something, and he played a lot of villains in the 60s. He died very young. He was dead by the end of the 60s, but he played villains on Bonanza and various other,
Oh,
he was sort of the bad guy version of Captain Stubing. He
okay.
looked sort of like him, but he was the real bad guy
Yeah.
in a lot of them. But in this one, he's got heart. It's great. It's a fantastic performance. Very, very nuanced. Um,
It
and
is. It's a really nice performance.
uh-huh.
And it's a surprising just slice of humans doing something proper for once.
Right, right.
And
But
I
doing
think
it on the
that
sly because he doesn't want his reputation ruined, for
that's
being
right.
a,
And so for me, that kind of primes the older man
Mhm.
to reject the new body and go back to his old one.
Yes, I think so too. And I mean that he does it. He actually has the procedure done, comes out to his wife and realizes the folly of it all. His wife is still 75 years old and he's 25.
And,
So
he's okay with it. The wife is who realizes the horror of it all.
that's right. Because she realizes, oh, this guy is like, I'm never going to be able to keep up with him now.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. and he sees the look in her eye. He sees the look in her eyes, and
That's all it takes.
returns to the body that he's going to spend the rest of his life with the woman that he's already spent 50 or 60 years with. So
It was very powerful.
it was.
And yeah.
It's and it it's a great ending as they're walking out of the place together again, the same way they walked in, the first time.
So that leaves us with the last interesting relationship, a grandmother, and it kind of began with a grandmother around Long Distance Fall.
Yes.
And now we're ending with one.
Yes. This grandmother is a little different. This grandmother, the name of the episode is I Sing the Body Electric. It is season 3, episode 31. So it's towards the end of that particular season. It is, it stars Larry Tate of
That's all you need to say.
David White. And he plays George Rogers, the father of these 3 children. And the first scene that you get is, I don't know if it's his mother-in-law or some harridan just giving him a bunch of crap for not being able to take care of his kids, even though his kids love him.
Yeah.
He starts to feel guilty about the fact, well, it's hard for me. I got to work and all this sort of thing. And so one of the kids comes to him with a magazine and says, "Hey, look at this ad in the back of the magazine, Dad." And it's like, must have been like a really, really futuristic version of, Popular Mechanics or something.
Yes.
This as an ad in the back of this magazine for basically androids.
That's the G-rated side.
Yeah, that's the G-rated side. The other side is send away $5 for these pictures from Glenn or Glenda, or whatever.
God. Captain Dezita running around as the devil. Wonderfully sentimental.
Mm.
And there's, we talk a lot about James Cameron ripping off Outer Limits. Well, yeah, James Cameron ripping off Outer Limits for his Terminator movies.
Sure.
I think he ripped off some of this too. Because think about
I'm
that.
sure he watched all of this stuff. He was, so much into science fiction and everything.
Sure. Think about the monologue that she gives the daughter. The daughter doesn't like her, who I think is that a Cartwright?
That's Veronica. Yeah.
Veronica Cartwright. Yeah.
And for those of you who are into sci-fi, Veronica is probably best known for being an alien. But she was a child actress along with her sister.
Yeah.
Who played, who was on Lost in Space.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, she's they're talking about the grandmother figure whose name is Grandma.
Yes.
And about how she would never leave them.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of covers it up by saying, "I wouldn't know how," but it's clear that it's because she loves them.
Right.
And it reminded me of that monologue that Linda Hamilton has, where she's looking at the Terminator playing with young John Connor, and she says, suddenly I saw someone who would never, chide them, would never lift their hand to them, any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh boy, that's the story.
Yeah.
And then when she pushes the kid out of the way of the truck, I suddenly got visions in my head of the T-1000 versus the grandmother, because she's indestructible.
Right. And yeah, like the bread truck driver or whatever it is gets out and turns out he's got glowing red eyes. He's ready to take her out.
Yeah, that'd be good. Mayberry, R.I.P.
R.I.P. Yes, exactly. But the twist of this whole thing is it's about the immortality of love. Really, it's about love is forever, and this robot has been programmed to be able to love and protect and teach and do all the things that a human being can do. Even though she's the sum of parts, she's more than the sum of parts. she talks about how she's going to go back there now that they're off to college, because it cuts away and it's a few years later, and they're ready to go off to college, all three of them. And she's, so I'm going to go back to this, this company, and they'll do a couple things. They may reassign me. They may take me apart. They may put what you would refer to as my soul in a room with a bunch of others, and we'll talk about each other's
I
family.
love that. Yeah,
It's great. It's almost, it's fantastic. And maybe in 300 years I'll become an actual human being.
it could happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could
Which,
happen.
by the way, is the exact story of Bicentennial Man.
Oh,
He's
interesting.
He's a robot that wants to be human, and it takes him a couple hundred years to do it. That's why it's called Bicentennial Man. He's 200.
Yeah, I remember the movie.
Yeah.
I never read the story.
Yeah.
So I think it's Isaac Asimov's story.
Yeah.
But good stuff. Well, I think this is a lovely arc.
Mm-hmm.
I felt good the whole time I watched it for the most
Yep.
part.
Yes.
And when I felt bad, I felt like something quintessentially human was being addressed, with his bereavement or whatever.
Yes.
And
Sure.
and I felt safe in Serling's hands. And he treated that. I think he knew that these ends of life have all sorts of things tied up in it.
Yes.
And so I think he knew to treat it gently. Treat it gently.
Yeah, and to his advantage, the time in which he was doing these broadcast stories lent itself to thoughtfulness about those kind of issues, so as not to be too realistic with kids watching or whatever,
Yeah.
but to be creative about it and still have it be there.
Mm-hmm.
So
very much so. Well, let's figure out some more and do this again.
Yep.
All right. Well, for everyone watching, I thank you very much for being with us. And if you find yourself in the Twilight Zone, hopefully you've brought a map, so get yourself out. I am Patrick McCray.
And I am Alan Gallant.
Good night.
Good night.